Hey y'all, how y'all doing? This is your girl Tashi, and I am back with another video. Yes, and this one is, why do the British look down on Americans? I don't even know why. Because us Americans, we really, I'll say most of us really don't care about what other people think about us. Other countries always say the Americans are full of it. They only care about themselves and stuff like that. There's some truth to that. There's some truth. It's sad to think that way, but it's some truth. But I don't think Americans really care, to be honest. I don't think we care what other people think about us. But I want to see what's this is all about. Okay. I'm laughing because I could just imagine the stuff they're going to say.
I always feel really terrible that everyone's first attitude is, oh, you're from America, are you? Oh, okay. Which is always you always feel a bit bad about that, because I'm not entirely sure why we still do that, but
How do you feel perceived as Americans by the British here in London?
A big, stupid, bellowing oaf. Really? Yeah, genuinely. I always feel like I have to apologize for being Americans. I know my accent's the worst thing you'll hear today, but can I just order a coffee?
My experience, I feel like, has been a little bit different. I think that might be somewhat informed by the fact that I'm a student here. Okay. At first, there was a bit of a learning curve. When I would speak loudly on the tube, I would kind of get looks, and people would tell me, you're being American, maybe not.
There's definitely sort of a sense that there is a lot of difficult things going on in America, and that America potentially could be quite a difficult place to live, especially if you're of colour or from the Middle East.
I have to admit, the inspiration to make this video came when I moved to Europe. As I've explored in previous videos on this channel, many Europeans have mixed to negative views of Americans as dumb and uncultured. But to my surprise, the same goes for the British. I've come to realize that the only people that see the British as intelligent and sophisticated are the Americans. Many Europeans, like the Portuguese or the Spanish, see a very different reality. The British that go off on holiday to get extremely drunk and break things. The British that are isolationist with Brexit. The British that don't learn foreign languages, that stick to their native tongue. Wait a second, I thought to myself. That's what Americans do. Other people do this as well?
How dare they copy us?
I kid, of course. Still, it does feel like the Brits act like the Americans of Europe, but I am certain that is not something that they'd like to hear said about them. I mean, no offense, I am American after all. Does that not prove my point though? No one wants to stoop to the level of Americans. I felt I had to get my answers directly from the My perception is that the UK is 1 foot in Europe, 1 foot in the Americas. It feels like it should be in the middle of the Atlantic. Do you agree with that?
I think that's a pretty conclusive idea. I think that's definitely true, because a lot of people wouldn't even class England as being in Europe. Even in England, when you talk about going to Europe, no one ever thinks you mean Doncaster. They always think you mean Germany. You do get some perception that everyone's some sort of like a valley girl accent or something like that, and I think that annoys people quite a lot. But then again, it's the same way that English people are often perceived as all sort of being from London. The American dream, making yourself better and being seen to be self-improving, and it's a lot about earning money and being the best you can and going to the gym and all these kind of things.
Do you think are you saying it's positive or negative?
I think it's a positive thing for Americans, but I think the way it's perceived is often everyone goes, oh, get out of my face, because no one likes to enjoy someone else's success, at least in England anyway. I think.
So are you saying that British people are miserable? They're not happy? They're miserable? Or they jealous? I don't want to say it, but that's what it's coming off, because I don't see anything wrong with someone trying to better themselves, try to work hard, make money, and enjoy life. If I see someone doing that, it doesn't bother me one bit, because then that just motivates me. I want to do the same thing that person is doing. So when people feel some type of way, I guess some Americans could be a little show off. They like to throw in people's face. Yeah, look at me, look at me, look at me. Yeah, there are some Americans like that, but I don't know. I mean, it shouldn't really bother anyone.
I think in America it's probably very different. Oh, great, you got a promotion. Fucking bastards,
The identity of being American is such a thing.
Right.
That I don't think other places have that as much.
I don't think people are necessarily dumb, and I don't think it's a question of being dumb. I think it's just that there's this idea of being the best. To think that people in America, depending on where you're born, you can have access to care or not, it's frightening. And I don't know how you can speak about being the best when you can't even make sure that everybody's like taken care of. Are you treating everyone the same way in America? No, not everyone is treated the same way, just like not everyone is treated the same way in Europe.
Having been to America a lot,
Yeah, I kind of understand what she's saying, but at the same time, do any country ever treat all the people the same? I don't think so. British people have their own problems. You know, America have their own problems. Every country has their own problems because at the end of the day, no other country is perfect because there are countries out there that don't really look out for their own people, you know? So I understand what she's saying, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I got your own problems too.
they often ask, obviously as a joke, but just like, do you know the royal family or anything like that?
So do you feel that generally, the big generalization, there's mockery towards the Americans and Americans towards the British? It's more like cute. We think you're cute.
Yeah, I would say that, yeah.
How do you feel about Americans thinking you're cute?
Well, it can be taken as a compliment, obviously, but if they think that we're, like, as a country, not really a force to be reckoned with, then just because we do all these, like, things that date back to long before the US was established, it's not really relevant that they can mock us for that.
Is it condescending, would you say?
A little bit.
Or ignorant?
More ignorant. It doesn't, like, hurt me. You know?
How do you feel Americans perceive the British, first of all?
They kind of look down on us.
You feel that?
I feel like Americans think like they're on the top of everything, and there's always competition between the two.
So do you feel like the British have a chip on their shoulder a little bit because of that?
Yeah, a lot.
What do you think the British are better at than?
I don't know. I can't speak for every American. I never look down on British people. I never look down on them. I don't know. I always hear positive. Maybe the different people, different people, but I always talk positive things about British people, and people around me talk positive things about British people. I never really hear anybody, and there are people who don't talk about British people at all. Like most Americans that I know don't talk about British people because either they don't care, you know, or they just, I don't know, they just don't care, you know. So the people who talk down on British people, I don't get it. I don't know where that's coming from. But I always say positive things about British people. I just love the country. I love how the people talk. We always say that British people have the most nicest accent. You know, I love British accent. I've been saying this all my videos. Yeah, I know. I love British accent. I think it's sexy. But yeah, I never look down on British people at all. It's crazy that they feel that way. Sad. I apologize as American if there are people putting y'all down. I'm sorry.
American.
Yeah, polite, really.
More polite.
Yeah, more talkative, more helpful.
More helpful. The British are more helpful.
Yeah, than Americans. But Americans are nice. They're funny. Got good music.
Got good music. Okay. Yeah. Well, the British have good music too, man.
Americans are taking over the music scene.
But I mean, come on. There's a lot of great British music. So here's the thing that I think.
What? British people have the best music. I mean, both countries has best music. Come on. Are you serious? I'm such a fan of a lot of British artists out there. A lot of British artists. I can't name them all. There's so many. But what is he talking about? I just hate that. This is what I hate. I hate this whole American and British people going back and forth. Who's the best? I hate that. Like, we need to stop doing that. We're like family, okay? We're like cousins, okay? Long distance cousins, okay? We're family. We need to stop this.
think is going on here. We are not the same, the Brits and the Americans, but we sure have a lot of similarities.
Yes, we do.
Compare us to the Japanese or to Native Americans or to Ethiopians, and the differences between Americans and the British seems relatively small. We're like blood siblings in the village that is the globe. So here's what all of this started.
He said, I said cousins. We're like long distance cousins. See, at the end of the day, we're still family. We're not that much different. We're really not that much different.
To make me think of. There's a concept in psychoanalysis. I'm going to read you the definition, but it's called the narcissism of small differences. This comes from Freud. The narcissism of small differences is the idea that the more a relationship or community shares commonalities, the more likely the people in it are to engage in interpersonal feuds and mutual ridicule because of hypersensitivity to minor differences perceived in each other. We see this all over the world, between the Argentinians and the Chileans, for example, between the French and the Belgians. And indeed, I think this is what is happening between the Brits and the Americans. But at the end of the day, I feel like we make the little things that make us different much bigger than they really are.
The way the words that we use. And again, we were talking about this, weren't we?
Yeah.
About
we were talking about things like autumn versus fall. And it's like that's often something that people like bring up. And for some, well, it's because it's a simpler word. And it's like, fall, American.
You guys don't say fall?
No, we don't say fall. We
Oh,
say
interesting.
autumn.
Okay.
So this is autumn. It's not fall.
But you can say autumn as well. All right, before we go on.
He's right though. We say autumn also. So I don't understand where is this coming from. People saying, "Oh, Americans say fall." Yes, we do say fall. We do. And some of my videos, you will hear me say fall, but here we do say autumn also. My mother says it. So it's like that's what I'm saying. Like I guess it depends on the state too, because every state say certain things different. So I don't even know where that came from. I really don't.
Everyone speaks English. Everyone's like got the same sort of core values. I'm not necessarily a big Christian person at all, but we all come from this like Christian-based countries. America and Australia are English. There's some things that happen in history, but at the end of the day, we're kind of all the same group of people in that regard.
Culturally influenced.
Culturally influenced by the same group. So I personally don't see many differences at all.
I mean, I've got wonderful American friends who I adore. So that question for me is a difficult one because I think they're great, they're fantastic. I think the differences in the way our language is, in the way we use different words, that's where there's a difference.
So pretty minor.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes some of the British media or the portion of the British population that looks down on Americans, is it a way to deflect some of the issues that exist here? Could that be said of all societies?
Yeah, you can say that of all societies, but you can also say that about the media. They're always distracting, aren't they, from topics, whatever it is.
I agree.
America's seen as very alpha male, if you think about it in terms of masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
There's an alpha maleness to Americans. And maybe it's just the way they speak, the accent, but you don't really have that sense of Britain. I think there's a stereotype of the repressed male, that soft-spoken.
Considering we're like right on the edge of Europe, we have more in common with America in many ways than we do with the rest of Europe, which in theory is where we should be more aligned. And I think there's sort of something that can feel sort of slightly odd about that, you know, like with the whole Brexit thing, breaking away more from where we're most closely connected to and sort of being in a situation where, you know, we're going to end up with chlorinated chicken instead.
There's this tendency to think of Americans as just, you know, they're simplistic, really.
Are you like annoyed by the Americans here in
Sometimes.
I wouldn't say
Depends how they are.
Now the interesting thing is I love to drag the US through the mud and criticize it for all.
She sound like she just hate Americans. You could see in her face. She looks so mad. Somebody must have hurt her, boy. Maybe her ex-boyfriend was American. Somebody hurt her. Because she just come off like she just have this hate for Americans.
One of the things that I think it deserves criticism for, but the second the Brits start criticizing me and the US, you have nothing to say. Kind of like I can criticize where I grew up, but you aren't allowed to. And the British, in my opinion, are doing their version of the same thing, criticizing themselves to no end, but no one wants an outside opinion. Maybe we all do this. I think
every country does this. They know how their country is. They just don't want outsiders to criticize their country. And I get it, because I hate when people come to New York and they talk about New York is dirty, we have rats, and New York is this, New York is that. I feel some type of way. I'm like, why don't you shut up, okay? You don't have to be here. You could move out. You could leave. Go. I'm one of those people that will say that. But I know that I know that New York is dirty, okay? I know that, okay? It smells here, okay? You know, it's crowded here. It's too much people. I know all of this, okay? Let me say it. But I don't want you saying it. Don't say it. Let me say it. You're not allowed to say it, okay? Only New Yorkers, people who was born or raised here, are allowed to say that, okay?
we all do this. It's like pointing at someone else's flooding house when your own house is on fire.
So I lived in America for 6 years. I lived in California, Alabama, and Oklahoma for 3 years. Everyone hears my accent and is like, oh, where in America are you from? I'm like, bro, I'm actually from Australia, but then they give me their little opinions on American stuff. So I've actually had to play defense a couple times since I've been out here.
Are you serious?
I'm so serious. They talk about guns, or they talk about this, but they don't have like a very good understanding, not just English people, this is people around the world, even in Australia, of the history of America and why those things became what they were. People trying to, throw rocks and then hide their hands.
Yeah.
They don't want the blame to be on them, so it's easy to put it on the big superpower that is on everyone's TV.
My perception is...
I don't know who that guy is. Oh my God. He's so cute. I know, I'm such a flirt. He's cute. I can't stop looking at his face. I'm listening to him, but at the same time, I can't stop looking at him.
I don't consider Americans necessarily lesser in terms of like lifestyle, culture per se. I just think it's a bit more apparent than it is in the UK, but the UK is just as problematic.
There's always sort of a sense in the past that like America was sort of, 2 decades ahead of what was happening in this country. There is a sense that we're getting closer in a time frame.
I would say younger generations tend to be a bit more, and the only word I can think of it is shameful of the heritage. I think it's a lot of things from like colonialization and things like that. There tends to be a lot more shame around it.
We're a small island, right? So we've got a small island mentality, but because we've got a small island mentality, we've got to overcome it by kind of that impression that we're the best. And I think that's changing, though. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a total reflection of society now, but I think historically it has been, of course. Let's flip the question. How are Americans perceiving the British?
My answer to that is there is a power dynamic going on, and for better or for worse, the US is much more of a world superpower right now. So I don't think that the US feels threatened necessarily, like competitive with Great Britain. Because of that, I think there's kind of like they're cute, you know what I mean? Like they're Harry Potter and James Bond and sophisticated and
He use words like autumn.
Exactly. But I also think that there's also a major degree of ignorance. Like the US is so self-involved. We're not even paying attention to what's going on elsewhere in the world. So there's not even enough to form an opinion, Now, this video was definitely supposed to be in good fun. I harbor no ill will towards the British. I find our rivalries as human beings across cultures, across nations, to be comical and interesting. It's like an insight into human psychology. And despite all of the, criticizing going on here, I'd like to end on a positive note. I'd like to express my appreciation for a few things that I think the British do better than Americans. Your healthcare system, for one. Also, the Premier League. They say football was invented in England, and if that is true, as someone with Argentinian background, I can only thank you. I also have to thank you for your incredible music. What a contribution to our collective heritage. It is a foreign idea
I'm a fan
to me
of
to have a
Coldplay.
royal family, but I respect the commitment to tradition.
But I did move here the week that the Queen died. So it was really interesting to see. I think my first impression of like the British as a public was that of like mourning for their queen, the 14-hour long line to go see her lying in state. So I think it was a little bit of a shock. This might sound silly, but how procedural the British can be. I noticed that tends to be like every British person I've met tends to be very procedural, as opposed to Americans, I think, are a little bit more, like, dare I say, free-spirited or individualistic. So, I mean, I think that's not to say that one is better than the other.
And as a final note, we are obviously a world of individuals, and so stereotypes never fully work. Still, I find it so fascinating to explore the stereotypes and cliches that we have for one another. Not always, but often there is some sort of basis of truth there, or else they wouldn't spread and persist as they do. Anyway, having said all of that, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please consider liking it, which tells the algorithms to share this with more people. I thought it was fun, and it's a format I'd love to continue exploring. And also consider subscribing so that you can see more of the material that I make. With that, I hope to see you soon.
I'm not gonna lie, this is a good video. This is a good video. Oh my gosh. I always like to hear other people's opinion about Americans. Sometimes it's funny because it's like, I don't think as Americans, I'm gonna keep it real. I don't think as Americans, we really care about other people think about us, because we already know most countries don't like Americans. Okay, we already know that, but it doesn't affect us in no type of way. It's like we don't really care. We really don't. you know. But I don't know. And I always hear Americans, we're dumb. I don't say how Americans are dumb when we have the most smartest people here in America. We have kids who are like 9 years old going to college, okay? We have young doctors who are like 15 years old who are doctors and stuff like that. We have like, I don't understand this whole American people are dumb. I don't get it. Like, I feel like every country either have smart or dumb people. You have either one. Everybody has that, okay? I don't know. I don't stand this whole hate for America. I really don't, you know? But it's funny to me, though. That's why I always be laughing, because I think it's funny. We're family. Anyway, I could go on and on about this. So comment below. Let me know how you feel about this video. And make sure you subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you lovely people. Take care. Love and peace.